my criticism of this paper really centers on one thing. If you're going to propose that one thing caused another, and you're looking at two different groups, in this case, the group one would be a group that received more aluminum than group two. And you're arguing that that group that received more aluminum in vaccines than group two, that second group, have now a higher incidence of asthma because of that. Well, you have to make sure you control for so-called confounding variables. You have to isolate the effect of that one variable. So you want to make sure that they're identical in terms of other risk factors, like breastfeeding, which can be protective against asthma, or a family history of asthma, that where they live matters, because you know, if you're living in a highly industrialized region, and most of your people in this study who had higher levels of aluminum lived in more industrialized regions, that's a confounding factor. So you have to make sure that's the same on both groups, which they didn't. They didn't do that. They didn't do the one basic thing they needed to do to prove that something was causally associated. I suspect what might happen is there may be then actual real studies that are done looking at this that will refute it. But, you know, as the old Jonathan Swift line is, falsehood flies and the truth comes limping after, and that may be what happens here. But I think at the very least we can try and reassure parents that this was a paper that should never be published because it offers nothing to our understanding of vaccines. We've been using adjuvants like aluminum or aluminum salts in vaccines really since the 1940s. So we have an extensive decades, like roughly 80 years of experience with aluminum salts in vaccines. And we know that they're benign. We know that like aluminum, first of all, is the most abundant metal on the Earth's crust. It's a light metal. It's in the air we breathe. It's in the water we drink. It's in a number of the foods that we eat. There is no avoiding aluminum. So the question is then, if you get injected with aluminum, because obviously when you ingest aluminum, when you eat aluminum, you'll take about 1% of that into your bloodstream. Obviously, when you inject it, 100% gets into your bloodstream. So wouldn't that be much worse? But again, if you look at people, children who get aluminum vaccines, you can't tell that they've increased their level of aluminum because it's so quickly excreted from the body, and because you always have aluminum in your body anyway, because you're always eating aluminum or drinking aluminum.